Welcome everyone to this edition of the YOGAmazing video podcast. I'm Chaz, I'm your host, and as I always do every year, at the start of the new year, I like to focus on a healthy living and lifestyle episode. And with me today is a very good friend. Her name is Morgan, and she is also known as the Southern Yogi. Now, she has a great story, but our story goes back, I guess, a couple of years.
Yeah.
Every morning, I used to go and get a coffee.
Doppio espresso.
Doppio espresso. I was a Doppio guy. So then I would see her around the city, a couple other places. And about that time, she was just getting into yoga.
Yep.
And you were telling me about how excited you were about it. And then I was telling her about some of the things I was doing with YOGAmazing and high yoga. And then the next thing you know is she's moving around a couple other places, in the city doing coffee. Then the next thing you know, she becomes the Southern Yogi. And you've become quite a phenomenon on Instagram. You've got over 300,000 followers. It's truly amazing. I mean, from the time we first met.
I know, it's almost been 3 years. April 2014 was when I started my yoga journey, so coming up on 3 years now.
Now, there's many facets to your yoga, but what I want to talk about in this episode, is the healthy lifestyle. Why did you get into yoga? What is it? Because you had another career that you were moving into, and now, you don't do nothing else. You've done a lot of ad work in the yoga industry now, and she has a beautiful yoga practice, so check her out on Instagram and you'll see some of the photos. But why did you get into yoga?
So initially I got into yoga because I was a competitive swimmer for 10 years. And when I stopped that and I started focusing on my schooling, which was for vascular sonography or just ultrasound, basically on the blood vessels and the arteries, it just wasn't a good fit for me. Like, I was very young, I was working full-time in a hospital, super stressed out, long hours, and I was kind of hopping around from like workout to workout, trying like Tabatas and weightlifting and just dabbling in like a bunch of different facets of like fitness. And I tried my first yoga class and I actually like hated it.
Now, which kind of yoga did you first?
It was actually like an Ashtanga inspired class.
Right.
So, very, very like tough. It was kind of like a series that you worked through.
So you got your butt kicked.
Yeah, I did. And I think I was a little bit upset because I was like, oh, it's yoga. It's like not a big deal, right? It's going to be easy. And I think when I went into the class with that mindset and then I got my butt kicked and I was like, what the heck? Like, I'm supposed to be an athlete. So I was a little bit frustrated with myself. But my teacher at that class was like, I promise you, if you come like 3 or 4 times a week and you just give it a few weeks, like your body is going to fall in love with it. And sure enough, like I gave it a chance. And then at that point, I think I wanted to like dive into more of a home practice and explore what it looked like on my own mat without a instructor and just kind of like feel it out for myself. So...
And so when you got into that, you got into the Ashtanga practice, and then you started moving around. Then you got some certifications and some training. I mean, let me ask you this: how? Because you kind of got your start, I guess, in the social media world. That you would just post pictures, and I love the great story. I think you told me about it, or you posted about it. Is that she would use her iPhone and you would put it in your shoe.
My little shoe.
And, then that's how you started out, and that's kind of like how YOGAmazing started out. There was no real goal except to just do something that you love. And,
right, exactly.
And then what is it about the Southern Yogi on Instagram that people? Why did they connect to you? Why do you think people connect?
That's a good question, and it's one I've had to like ask myself over the last few years. Because originally, like you said, I was just about posting like progress pictures. And it started out in my basement at one of the first houses that I lived in, and I was just sticking my iPhone in like the heel of a tennis shoe and just, taking screenshots of videos for pictures. And I definitely think there's something to be said about being like relatable and authentic. And so many of the yoga accounts out there today only post like the actual pose or the finished product, if you will. And when you post your journey and you're like, it's okay to fail, it's okay to fall, it's okay to try this, 100, 200 times before you nail something, and people really latch onto that because that's something they can relate to.
And I agree with you 110% on that, because I've actually, and it's kind of, I'm sure you've been able to meet some of the people from your channel.
Yeah.
And it's like I've been fortunate to meet randomly people. Just if I've been in different states, and you've probably been in different countries and states, and people said, and I would ask them, I said, why on earth what is it about YOGAmazing that excites you? And I said, my body aches today. My hamstrings are tight. I'm just not in the mood. And she goes, just because of everything you said, because you're not coming off as this pretentious, higher than life, sitting on the golden chair.
You're a regular human. And
people realize that. And they also said that we love your horribly bad jokes. Yeah, because I tell the worst jokes. But I think that's the same reason why I'm still doing this 12 years later.
Yeah. And
you're now into your third year. And I think it's just that ability to relate and connect on a personal and honest level.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, from your yoga experience, you've now moved into a different channel within yoga, which is Acro yoga.
Acro yoga, yep.
So why is that? Because to me, when I've seen Acro yoga, I've never done it, but it's like when I was in high school, I was a cheerleader. So some of the stuff that you guys are doing, I'm like,
very similar.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of some of the holds I did as cheerleading. So why is it called, I guess, Acro yoga?
So Acro yoga,
acrobatics.
Yes, it's a mixture of acrobatics and yoga. But I think like when you bring the yoga portion of it like into Acro yoga, you're bringing like the grace and the movement, and the biggest thing is you're moving with your breath. So you're incorporating where lots of people aren't as in touch with the breath and moving with the breath, and it's two people almost meshing together and becoming one, because it's hard enough to like move with your breath when you're on your mat by yourself, and then you take that and you do that with another person. So I think there's definitely something to be said for like who your partner is. And I mean, I've flowed with many people before who I haven't really meshed with, and like that's okay. Like you don't find like that synchronicity and like togetherness with everyone that you move with. But I've been practicing with the same partner for about a year now, and we got our acrobatics and yoga certification in 2016.
Now, where'd you go for that?
So we went to San Diego, and it was awesome.
San Diego.
Yeah, it was an amazing trip, and the whole training was out of like a gymnasium.
So
they had the springboard floors.
Yeah.
And it was awesome because we were with about like 40 other acrobats from around the country, and we had amazing instructors and all the right tools and everything that we needed to kind of advance our practice and then bring that back to Louisville.
Now you've also been fortunate to have done a lot of traveling. I know that you went over to Ireland to do some. Now, what did you teach over there? Just your flow, or a little bit of everything?
A little bit of everything. So it was called Wellfest, and it's in Dublin, and they have different categories. So there's like Well Talk, where you'll speak to people. There's Well Workshops, where it's a smaller group of people and you're focusing on like, handstands or a certain category. And then there's like the Well Stage. So I did the Well Stage, Well Yoga, and Well Workshop. And so the stage was where I was teaching about 200 or 300 people on the big stage with a mic, and that was awesome just because everyone over in Ireland is so nice, and it's almost like really hard to be nervous.
Well, there's a lot of people in Ireland. There's people watching this.
Yes,
So, hey.
You guys are awesome. Specifically in Dublin, like absolutely loved it. And then I just did a Well Yoga, which is basically under like a big canopy or tent, and that's just a regular class. And then the Well Workshop, where I focused on handstands, and then did a Q&A like about my Instagram. It was really fun though. It was and I'm actually going back in May with my Acro yoga partner, and we're gonna bring Acro to Dublin this time.
Oh, very
so
cool.
It'll be really neat.
So you've been, you've done that. I know you went and you're getting ready to go visit your friend in Dubai.
Yes.
And so where else have you taught outside of here in Louisville?
So, okay, yoga has brought me to recap of 2016, Dubai, Bali, LA, Chicago.
Then you went to Hawaii for a photo shoot.
Hawaii was awesome. I'd never been to Hawaii. That was my first time, and it's probably one of my favorite places I've ever been. It was just stunning. And then, oh my goodness, where else? I'm not even gonna remember. So Ireland was last year too. California, lots of stuff in California, but it was just amazing. And then this year is kind of like taking off already for the places.
Now this is all you do now. Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yes.
Now let's go back to the beginning of this. You started from nothing. You gained all this knowledge. Now you're able to share that knowledge. Now what I want you to share with people, there's a lot of, as you know, you've met people who said, which is the greatest line I ever hear, I can't do yoga because I'm not flexible enough. It's like, well, maybe you should try yoga. So I guess my question is that I wanted people to hear your story because it is truly a great one. And I've known her for several years, and she is truly a sweetheart, a very kind, gentle spirit. And so I'm glad that she's actually flying out tomorrow to go to her friend's wedding in Dubai. And I was fortunate to be able to, to drag her. No, I need you for this interview because I still got one more interview to do. But what would you recommend to people about getting into yoga or sticking with yoga? Or what is that thing, that passion that maybe they can hook onto?
So for me, getting into yoga, I think, is really all about, and teachers say this all the time, but it's so true, is leaving your ego at the door. And
I say that.
Yeah, and that was my big thing. That's why I think I got so frustrated at that first yoga class I went to, because I didn't do that. And I went in with like, this is yoga, this is gonna be easy. Like, I probably already know how to do everything. So I think if you approach everything with a student and beginner's mindset, it's probably gonna be a lot easier for you. And then also, as far as getting on your mat every day and just making it a routine, I personally view fitness and exercise as a gift. And it's not something that we should take for granted. It's not something we're entitled to. And there's so many people out there that aren't capable of being able to get out and go on a walk. And so if you were able to get on your mat even for 5 minutes, like, I'm not saying 2 hours, even 5 to 10 minutes a day, like, that's a complete blessing, especially in today's world with so many health issues. And I think you just have to kind of keep that mindset and maybe even like dedicate your practice to someone that day that you know is struggling or that isn't doing well. Because there's obviously days that I don't even want to get on my mat, and I'm like, you know what, like, I am able physically and healthily, like, to get on my mat and like do even just like 10 minutes of yoga.
You know, the other thing that I love about yoga is like, think of some of the, even let's say that you were that premium high-end swimmer, and your friend over in Dubai, her husband-to-be is an Olympic swimmer.
Yep.
But in that level of playing, you get so far, just like with Tiger Woods.
You tap out.
And you tap out. But what I love about yoga is that as you grow older, you can get better. And I always love the story of Vonda Scarvelli.
I don't think
Vonda Scarvelli did not start yoga until she was 42 years old.
That's amazing.
And she passed away, I think, maybe close to 100. But by the time she passed away, her practice was through the roof.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
I'm like going, so I always tell people that, I said, you're gonna peak in something, whatever sport it is.
Yep.
But with yoga, it's the only thing I found that can continue with the progression and help you with depression, heart issues, and flexibility.
Yep, that's one of the reasons I love it so much, and that's what I always tell people as well. Because like in swimming, I tapped out. Like, there's only so many like seconds that you can shave off of like times, and it's always about competing. And that's another cool thing with yoga. It's like there is no competition. Like you're not competing next to like someone else that's on the mat beside you. You're not even competing with yourself. It's just like kind of a never-ending journey. It's like a spiral. It just keeps going. And I absolutely love that. There's just always something to refine or get better at.
I agree. Well, thank you for your time, because she's got to get ready to go on her road trip. And remember, if you have any questions, you can send them to me, or you can find her on Facebook under the Southern Yogi.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Safe trip.
That was awesome.